Welcome to Path's monthly Path Presents at the Forefront. Our last episode topic was veteran homelessness. They protected our country, we protect them. This month, we'll be reflecting on Path's essential workers and how we can continue to take care of our clients and ourselves as we enter into 2021. My name is Jennifer Harkdietz, and I'm the Deputy CEO of Path. And if you've been following along of these At the Forefront episodes, you know how important they are for accomplishing Path's mission to end homelessness for individuals, families, and communities. We've continued to realize that, of course, it's important to help the people directly on the street, but that in order to end homelessness, we have to change the system that's causing it. And our At the Forefront series is a way to educate all of you, our supporters, on the facts about homelessness, its causes, and the system that we all need to change, how we find those solutions. So today's episode's title is 2020, the Year of the Essential Worker. As we all know, homelessness is a crisis that existed before COVID-19. So when COVID-19 hit almost a year ago, we knew that we needed to not only continue the essential work we were doing, but expand our services exponentially. We also knew that while we were focused on the expansion to protect the individuals and families living on the street and in our interim housing shelter settings, we had to ensure our staff were protected and had the information that they needed in a time when information was changing daily. It's hard for me to even put into words what I was personally feeling in March of 2020. There were so many unknowns and true fear, both at work and at home. I remember the look on my husband's face as I left early in the morning to start our first isolation and quarantine site. And I still get teared up a little bit about it. Let's just say there were many hard conversations that we had never had to have before. Then in June, when people were being murdered in overwhelming numbers across the US, based just on the color of their skin, I felt completely helpless. And I felt our work shifting. That's when I knew that we all still had hope. That there was a need for our work to address the causes of homelessness, centering around systemic racism, even when we didn't, and sometimes still don't have all the answers. This year has been unprecedented, but I am starting 2021 with a sense of gratitude, grateful for the ability to stay grounded and provide hope to thousands of our most vulnerable neighbors. So in response to the pandemic, we hired more than 100 new staff, which led to us opening 13 new interim housing sites, permanently housing almost 1,500 people, and our outreach teams were delivering 40,000 masks and hygiene kits to folks living directly on the street. Today, we're going to hear from some of those staff who provided this essential work through every stage of ending homelessness, whether that's street outreach, interim housing, and finally, permanently making it home. While we're going to reflect on our direct work, we're also going to reflect on how our work is intertwined with dismantling systemic racism and how our staff and clients have felt this year amidst the very visible violence towards the Black individuals in the United States and even right here at home. We're going to kick off today's episode with Damon, one of our street outreach managers in LA, and talk about how our team their jobs have had to pivot. So I'm going to turn it over now to Joel, our CEO, who'll lead the first conversation and panel. And thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Jennifer. We at Path have really appreciated your hands-on leadership this past year. And we know it's been quite a year. And we remember back in March when the governor basically had a stay-at-home order, or they called it safer at home. And we knew as Path, how do you stay at home when you're homeless living on the streets? And we knew at Path that the average person on the streets were very vulnerable to COVID, the health pandemic. So we're going to talk with Damon. And as you can see, Damon is actually on the streets of Los Angeles and has been on the streets of Los Angeles overseeing some of our outreach teams in this area. So welcome, Damon. How are you?
Hi, I'm pretty good. And yourself? Thank you for having me.
I wonder if you could just share a little bit about who you're seeing on the streets, especially in the last 6 months during this health pandemic.
I'm seeing families on the streets, women, children, men. We see couples. We also see individuals, and I think the out of the majority of the people that we're seeing on the street, a lot of them have mental illness and substance abuse. So those are the primary people that we see out so far since this pandemic.
And so how has this COVID pandemic affected those on the streets?
I think it's affecting those on the streets because it's hard for them to get housing. Right now, we're struggling with a few housing facilities um, that are so afraid because of COVID. So it's hard to actually get them in because their offices may have shut down because of COVID. So also, I think just being able to work with people that's homeless right now and trying to have them follow the necessary precautions in order for us to work with them, that's been a challenge.
I know before COVID, when people were hungry who were living on the streets, they would go to feeding programs across the city in the county. But when COVID hit, people obviously couldn't volunteer in groups to help feed people who are homeless. So how do people living on the streets during COVID find food?
So what we're doing, instead of them having to find food, we're loading our vans up. We work with various organizations in order to get food. We load it up, we take it to them, one encampment at a time, or if we see them on the streets at a bus stop or whatever the case may be, we take it to them. Also, we found out that the YMCA over off of Santa Monica and Barrington has a large number of homeless populations. They're going to take showers. So we're talking about maybe between 100 to 150 people a day. And a lot of the people that we're working with on the streets and trying to feed end up there. So we can meet them there as well.
Thank you, Damon. And we know that as people who are housed, people have been getting sick, whether they're on the streets or they're in a home in this past year. So, Damon, what have your teams been doing when they encounter people who are sick on the streets?
Of course, the only thing we can do is advise them to seek treatment, to get tested. We do pass out masks. We do have masks with us. I have a box of these masks with me on a daily basis. That's the best we can do. I've had two clients call me and tell me that they had COVID. And the only thing I can do is just beg them and plead with them to pretty much get tested or seek some type of treatment or help, whatever can help them at this point.
And how do our neighbors on the streets, we're all supposed to be 6 feet distance from each other people. We're supposed to wash our hands and clean water and soap, and we're supposed to wear masks. So how do, like if I'm living in a tent or if I'm, living in a sleeping bag on the streets, how do I protect myself?
In certain areas, we found out that they're setting up hand wash stations in certain areas. Also, we're taking them water and soap. So when I find a certain encampment, we will take them water, whether it's a gallon of water. Some of them in certain encampments, they have like gallons of water and they want to wash their hands or whatever the case may be. So we will fill that water up as well as bring them soap. So that's something that we've been trying to educate a lot of different encampments to do. And if they don't do it, then we try to help them out with it.
So Damon, you and your team are considered essential workers because you're essential. Actually, you've been essential even before COVID, but with COVID, you're even more essential to helping people and saving people's lives. So how do you feel about that? And how do you balance your life working on the streets and then going home? And how do you balance your personal life and your work life as an essential worker?
As far as self-care, I am a boxer, so I do a lot of boxing training. I train myself. So that releases a lot of my frustration and stress around the way we have to operate right now. And I also think that I practice gratitude and thankfulness and gratefulness. I mean, I'm just knowing that I don't have to live on the ground, sleep on the ground, wait for people to come and feed me, try to find food. I'm very thankful and grateful that I don't have to live that way. So I think me working as an essential worker, it keeps a certain level of politeness that I have towards other people. Um, it also it educates us on a deeper level dealing with mental health and substance abuse, and also just I think sometimes people, we as people, I think we judge people. So this has taught me not to have any type of judgment because we never know the walks of life that people come from. So me being out here, being an essential worker, I think it to a whole another level of being thankful and grateful, and also want to be helpful, for other people, for humanity at this point. I'm almost lost for words, to be honest with you.
Yeah. Damon, thank you. We are thankful to you and your teams for being out there. When a lot of people were staying at home working, you were out on the streets, and you continue to be out on the streets working. So we're just grateful that you are not only an essential worker, but you are essential to so many people. So thank you, Damon.
Thank you.
Jennifer mentioned also that in the midst of this health pandemic, our country also, and our state also experienced a racial inequity pandemic this year, and it's affected the people who are living on the streets, our staff who are essential workers. And so I just wanted to introduce you to one of our staff, Anissa Lopez, who actually is part of the leadership of a group within our staff that are overseeing diversity, equity, and inclusion. And she's going to share a little bit on video about her experience this past year.
Hi, I'm Anissa Lopez. I am the co-chair for our DEI steering committee at PATH. That's Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I'm also the lead case manager for our veterans program here in San Diego. Thanks for tuning in and listening to us share stories and experience of what it's been like as an essential worker for the past year in a pandemic. And on that note, you may ask what it's been like as a case manager this past year. Well, my response is probably the same to everybody. It's been very hard. It's been difficult living through a time where you're supposed to isolate, a time where you normally rely on your loved ones and extended family, but because of health reasons and safety precautions, you're staying away from them. So taking away that social aspect and the inability to just come to office and have simple, normal conversations with your coworkers is gone. So of course, it's going to feel lonely. It's going to bring up some harsh feelings of anxiety, depression. The isolation is not good for anybody, but it's especially hard as a case manager who works with the most marginalized of populations. Something that I constantly think about, I do have a loved one who works in the medical field and has worked for our COVID units. And it is wonderful, it's great, they are our heroes. But I always think about how social services and homeless services, we are often people that are overlooked and not paid attention to because we are dealing with a population many individuals just want to simply ignore because taking a harsh look at it brings up unwelcomed feelings. And in this time, it's been hard to just go home and, take off these emotions or daily duties that we normally just can leave out the door when we walk out of the office. But since we wake up and work from home nowadays, it just stays in your home. So it's been very difficult. But at the end of the day, we are looking at our clients and we want the best for our clients. So this is something that you just have to push aside to get the next goal checked off of your list. But as the civil unrest has highlighted, our marginalized communities, the Black community, people of color, Indigenous communities, we are at a disparity for the services that we are connected to. And unfortunately, this has brought to light how we are doing little for the communities. It is because of systemic racism, of historical systems that were put in place like redlining, where these communities are just at a disadvantage. And we are simply just providing a means to an end right now, and it sometimes feels like a Band-Aid. Here at PATH with DEI, we are looking internally and externally to how to address these racial disparities, how to create more equity within our communities, and how to really bridge the gap for the places that our clients have lacked. And hopefully we can do more in the future. But as of right now, I think just acknowledging some things is step one, and then making an action plan is step two. So first and foremost, for the names that you've been hearing, like George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, we want to honor them and say that their death was untimely, it was disgraceful and unwanted. But we look to the future to hopefully bring a better future for our clients.
Thank you so much to Anissa for her leadership, for our entire Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee. It has been really a great opportunity to be able to work with the team and really continue to work with them as we push to make PATH a better place, to make sure that what Anissa was sharing, where we're doing little for our community, that we flip that, and that we're doing a lot for Black communities and communities of color. So next, we're going to transition to a panel that's going to focus on interim housing, shelter, and permanent housing, and what it's looked like in this last year. So I'd like to introduce Bill Reed, who's our PATH San Diego housing specialist, and Manveer, who of course is our PATH Orange County director. That's a new title for her. We're very excited to have her join. So I'm going to start off with Manveer. You led the opening of our new region, PATH Orange County, this year. Our Placentia Navigation Center opened on March 31st, right after the stay-at-home order had been put in place. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that, because we know that opening a new region at any time is a challenge and an immense feat. But this year, it was vital to get those folks off the street and incredibly challenging. Can you share a little bit about how that was different?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Jennifer, for the question. It was definitely different. So March 2020, it was start of COVID, and then we were starting out a new shelter. The things that we never worry about, we had to worry about those things. Shortage of gloves, sanitizers. We didn't get our thermometers in on time, so little things like that. The things that you never think when opening a site would matter, they were mattering this time. And especially bringing on new team who are trying to learn interim housing, who are trying to learn PATH. And on top of that, they have to follow the guidelines of this new virus. So it was different. It was challenging, but I think it was a learning experience. Now, we started one shelter when COVID was starting, and now we are opening another shelter in Santa Ana, which is PATH's largest shelter. And so it's been a journey for sure. I believe the first couple months when we opened, it was hard to bring resources in. It was hard because COVID, everybody was like, no, we cannot be on site. And here we are opening Santa Ana. People are reaching out. Hey, we will be there every single day. Clinics are reaching out to us. So I think I was able to experience that shift. So this year has been a great teacher for sure. And how to work in whatever circumstances are given to us, we excelled. So I'm very proud of the team and our guests too. They worked with us. Without them actually compromising and understanding, I don't think it would have been possible.
Thank you so much. It's actually a perfect segue to my next question, which is, under one roof, how do you keep everyone safe? I mean, the safe social distancing, we try to stay 6 feet away. That's really hard when you're living with 100 other, other individuals. So tell us a little bit about how you all did that.
So definitely it was difficult, but we did have isolated rooms for people who were showing symptoms, and we were checking their temperature like 3 times a day. We're logging it. And then on top of that, like our bathrooms were separated as well. But luckily we did not get the outbreak until last month. And I think we had 16 folks in our shelter who tested positive for COVID. And so I think that was huge. And that kind of helped other people see it as, this is serious, especially our guests, right? And that kind of helped us like encourage them to get tested. And so, yeah, like it was challenging, but it was trial and error for sure.
Yeah, and I know you alluded to, we've seen since December community, the numbers of individuals who are impacted by COVID throughout shelter sites, throughout encampments really increase. So we do want to encourage everyone to slow the spread, as we call it. But appreciate just your work, and you alluded to opening a Santa Ana site, which I'm sure we'll share at the forefront in the future. So I'm going to go to Bill now. And Bill, as a housing specialist, you work with people, getting them back into a home. So tell us a little bit about how this work has been impacted in this last year.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Jennifer. Imagine the time it takes coordinating with different agencies and government entities in your daily work, and then now double that going into COVID, just because of all of their limited staff, limited hours, and the caseloads that they're operating on. And that's really what we experienced, is everything was taking longer, more drawn out. There was a lot more follow-up that had to happen. For those of you who have worked in affordable housing, you know the rigidness of the application process and almost an invasive amount of documents that they need to confirm your eligibility. So for one of my clients, we had to contact her bank, Health and Human Services, and the IRS for 3 years worth of tax returns. All of this takes time, and it wasn't done right the first time around. It's a learning process for everyone. And what originally started as a little more than a usual lease up turned into a long ordeal over a month to get her into housing. That's what we're really seeing, is that the impact is everything is going a little slower. The world is going a little slower. But for our world, for our clients' world, things got a little more chaotic. We had to understand that we had to put the extra effort in to make things happen. It was more rare that things were just gifted to you. You really had to push yourself to get into your goal.
Yeah, thank you for that, Bill. And I've heard this throughout, right? How getting folks into their own home and into housing is already a challenge, but with so many organizations closed and, DMV or entities where you can just get an ID, we're closed for a month. So the ability to get through that is really remarkable. Anissa mentioned it in her video about the isolation that's not just felt by our clients, but also our staff. But as a housing specialist, can you tell us, how is your team really supporting residents to try to avoid this isolation, which can be really scary?
So just like how Anissa said, and I'm sure we've all heard it, all of this is unprecedented. We have no original case to base on what we should and shouldn't be doing at this time. But the big things we did was we transitioned over to phone case management, phone housing navigation. If it meant that if I was unavailable because of sickness or whatever reason, having to empower the client that you're able to look at this unit on your own. The landlord will be there, the landlord won't be there, but this is how I want to coach you into going through this. There were a lot of staff limitations and a lot of things that we had to struggle with. But at the same time, we emphasize with clients what my available hours are, what case managers' available hours are. It's beneficial to everyone, because now you're really you're leaving the open door for a client to reach out to me, but you're also establishing a boundary to have time for myself, do my own admin things that have to be done on the side.
Thank you for that. For my final question, similar to kind of what Joel asked Damon, what has been consistently bringing you joy or helping you both take care of yourself this year?
So what I've realized is working at home has its pros and cons. The big con is after you clock out at the end of your day, you can sometimes feel like you've never left work. It's something I struggle with pretty often. The big pro is while I'm working from home, I have my dog on the side. So he really makes me feel better. Coming off a tough conversation with a landlord, tough conversation with a client, if I need to take a minute, he's right there. That's on a personal level. On the business level, doing all of this extra work to get someone into housing really makes it much more sweet. There's a lot more people involved in it. It's a more team-based oriented approach. And I think a lot of it, and it's because we don't see each other in person very often as much, is we have to take the time to celebrate. It's easy to brush things over to the side and just say, okay, on to the next case, on to the next client. But to take the 5 minutes to just text someone, call someone, one of your staff members, your colleagues, like, hey, so-and-so made it into housing. They're all set to go. I'm super excited, and I think they're going to do great. That was that's something that I wanted to push myself towards my team and just make sure that we emphasize and celebrate.
Definitely.
Yeah, Manveer, I want to hear from you too.
Yeah, I agree with Bill, definitely. For interim housing, we cannot work from home, so we had to be on site. But I think what brings me joy is just seeing our team, like they're willing to work. We were able to house people. We were able to work around all the challenges. Everything was closed from DMV to courts, and we were still able to work around it and make things happen. That brings me joy, not giving up on your clients, on your guest. The focus that team shows is just so amazing, and the hard work they put in. We have people people who are not they were not tested positive, but they had flu-like symptoms. I'd be like, stay home. They're like, no, we are okay. We want to come to work. Just forcing them to stay home, it makes me feel so happy that people, regardless of what we are going through, we have some good people on our team. And for I think my family, they seeing them that they're healthy. They are doing everything in their capacity to make sure that they stay healthy. So that brings me joy. That definitely brings me joy. I'm very, very grateful for everything that this year taught us.
Thank you both so much. I love the text messages of the making it home too, Bill. I get those periodically from the team. And Manveer, I know you have been out there working in interim, which can't work from home every single day, and appreciate you both so much and our entire PATH community. So thank you for being here to share your work with our supporters. I'm going to turn it back over to Joel, who's going to close us out for today.
Thank you, Jennifer. As you all can see, the year 2020 has just been an incredible year, a challenging year. But as you can see, the team of PATH, you can see their creativity and their passion and their commitment. At PATH, the team members, we all say and believe in whatever it takes to help people get into housing. That's what we'll do. And because of that, this team of committed people, of essential workers, have been building permanent supportive housing this last year. This team set up 13 interim housing facilities, 13 of them in the past year. We bought a hotel specifically to house people, and we're working with other local jurisdictions to operate other hotels. So you can see a lot has happened, and I want to thank the staff participants today who participated, Damon and Anissa and Manveer and Bill and Jennifer. And I want to thank the Golan Group who helped produce this episode in March. The next episode of At the Forefront will be highlighting the unique challenges of women experiencing homelessness and highlighting our programs dedicated to female participants. Our essential work doesn't stop in 2020. There's also this year, 2021. We're worried about the surge of COVID that's happening right now. We're worried about eviction moratoriums ending and people getting evicted from their apartments. We're worried about so many people who are currently unemployed will be permanently unemployed. We're worried that homelessness will increase. And that's why the essential work of PATH and the essential workers of PATH will continue. And if you'd like to support our work, please go to epath.org/give to support our essential work. But thank you for participating and being a part of this past year of 2020. And we look forward to continuing to save lives in 2021. Thank you, everybody.